We prefer our games a little more taxing in England.
Come on, I'll keep score. No cheating, boys.
Wonderful. What a wonderful evening.
He is not interested. He does not understand the mole sanctuary. He cannot see that this is a golden opportunity to teach the next generation of gardener that a few heaps of earth are nothing compared to the beauty of the mole in the wild.
About time.
Have you had your shot yet?
I was waiting for you.
I think this has gone on long enough.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Not you, Jonathan Talbot Wheeler. He could be stealing that painting for all we know. I think it's time I went and had a word with him. No, you were wrong. His car's still here. What can have happened to the man?
Mrs. Peacock! Mrs. Peacock! He's dead, Mrs. Peacock. That fellow Terry Fowler's been murdered. Dead.
So, TV presenter and art critic Talbot Wheeler is found dead. And all the evidence points to these 6 murder suspects. There are the murder suspects, the 6 weapons, and don't forget, the 6 rooms at the Grange. The drawing room, study, kitchen, dining room, billiard room, and of course the library. But first, to decide who begins, Andrew and Dee, a test for your powers of observation. He was looking at a painting on the landing. Who painted it?
You know?
Rembrandt.
Rembrandt, correct. This means you now have the right to go first with 3 questions to the suspects and then a deduction. But there's one final point before you start. 5 of our suspects this evening will be telling the truth. Only the murderer can lie. First question.
Right, first question. Mrs. Peacock, I'm very interested in your relationship with the Reverend Green. I see it goes as far as sharing your gin or vodka and tonic with him, which he doesn't seem to appreciate, yet he is attracted to you. And I just wondered, I know what it is that attracts you, I believe. It is your desire to raise money. How does he wheedle the money out of you, Mrs. Peacock?
Oh, with no difficulty whatsoever. As the lady of Arlington Grange, I am obviously generous towards the church.
Yeah.
We came together over the church roof many years ago.
A mutual attraction. Second question, please.
Colonel Mustard, what were you doing while you were waiting in the snooker room for Professor Plum to arrive?
I was becoming extremely angry. It's very irritating to be left twiddling one's thumbs, frankly.
Why don't you tell the truth, Mr. Colonel Mustard? The reason you were upset is because I was winning the game, and I did win the game.
But your third question, please.
Third question.
And then a deduction.
Yes, Reverend Green, you won't remember this, but about 6 months I went to one of your church fetes, and there was, extraordinarily enough, a copy of the same Rembrandt that was in the house, and it was going for £5. I tried to buy it, but you had bought it before me. What did you do with it?
I'm afraid I don't recollect. Are you
No,
sure
I
it was
suppose
one of
you
my fakes? Was it Save the Mole, which is my pet charity, as everybody knows?
You
Can
run
we
a
stick to
church,
the
don't
question,
you?
please, Reverend Green, huh?
No, I don't know really what you're talking about.
I think you'll have to put up with that answer, I'm afraid.
Yes,
Now,
very
you've
good
had 3
answer.
questions. A deduction, please.
Reverend Green goes to any lengths to raise money for...
How dare you?
Give me a chance. It goes to any lengths to raise money for his causes, and I applaud him for it. And substituted the fake for the Rembrandt, and is probably for sale at Christie's now. He did it with a paperweight in the study.
So you're saying that
Absolute balderdash.
the Reverend Green, with the paperweight, in the study.
Right.
You're right on one of those assumptions, but only one. So we'll move now the advantage to Keith and Harriet. Your question, please.
Colonel Mustard, can you tell me, do you always wear your napkin outside, you know, tucked in?
It's something I've done since I was a member of a particular mess in the army.
I see.
And all of us wore it like that.
Yes, never on your knee.
Never on our knees, no.
Well, for the moment, all of them are in a mess. Second question, please.
Mrs. White, obviously a cook par excellence. Do you usually give your husband the dish to lick when you finish something?
I'm afraid that is one of Mr. White's little perks, as he calls them.
Fine.
I can't quite see the relevance of this line of questioning, but third question and then a deduction, please, Keith and Harriet.
Mrs. White, may I ask what did you put in the cupboard or get out of the cupboard?
I did say to Mr. White that I hoped the veal might poison him, and I think that is probably what you're talking about. But I was, at the time, only speaking metaphorically. I do assure you.
Yes, thank you.
I went
There
to
you
the
have it.
cupboard for chopped chips to top off my desserts.
Absolutely, quite
Sweet,
right.
sweet innocence, we might call it. Your deduction, please.
Well, we think it's Colonel Mustard.
Why?
He's an arrogant man, and Talbot Wheeler has attacked his manhood and his pride by saying that he's keeping his title when he shouldn't be. With the paperweight, it's got to be the paperweight, in the billiard room.
So you're saying it's Colonel Mustard with the paperweight
In the
billiard room. I'm afraid you're wrong on all three of those assumptions, so we can eliminate those elements from further inquiries. Colonel Mustard is entirely cleared of suspicion. So, there you have it. But before we go on, I want to put that same evidence to our grand jury here, the 300 members of our studio audience. Now, you've seen the clues, you've heard the suspects, and you've listened to the detectives. But what's your verdict? Now, this is your chance to point your finger at the brutal killer. So, please make your decisions now. So our grand jury here in the studio has made its decision, and 1 in 4 of them, in fact, chose Professor Plum, 25%.
No! I'm innocent!
Time will tell. But 1 in 3 of you pointed the finger very clearly at Reverend Green. But I wonder if you agree at home. We'll take a short recess now, a few moments to collect your thoughts before we continue our investigation into the murder of TV personality Peregrine Talbot Wheeler. Welcome back. A murdered television art critic with, we now know, 5 possible murder weapons in 5 rooms at Arlington Grange, and with Colonel Mustard now eliminated, the certainty that one of these 5 other suspects is the murderer. And at this moment, the finger of suspicion is pointing very decidedly at the Reverend Green. But before our detectives make a fresh deduction, some intriguing new evidence. Whilst Colonel Mustard was left alone in the billiard room, let's trace the movements of Vivian Scarlett and Professor Plum.
All yours, Mustard.
Oh, go on. Tell me. I love practical jokes.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a practical joke exactly, but it is pretty funny, though. Mind you, I doubt if your mother will be laughing.
Go on, tell me. Tell me.
All in good time. Meanwhile, how's about you and me having a little bit of fun,
That's enough of that.
Uh-huh. But to decide who has the chance to apply this new evidence first, Keith and Harry, to test for your powers of observation first, what was Miss Scarlett holding in the study?
Oh, the paperweight.
The paperweight, correct.
Paperweight,
correct.
yes.
This gives you then the right to proceed with the cross-examination, but because we're sort of nosing a bit more towards the truth, we're going to limit you now to 1 question and then a deduction, please. So a question.
Mrs. White, do you always leap the defense of your cooking quite so vehemently?
I'd spent a long time. I'd spent the whole afternoon in my kitchen making the nice meal for the evening. I'm very sorry, Vicar, I'd forgotten about your not eating veal.
There was a little bit of a slip-up, Mrs. White, there, wasn't it?
Well, we were supposed to have fish, but we couldn't get it because there was trouble in the North Sea.
Trouble in the North Sea. Trouble in the North Sea, your deduction.
Trouble in the North Sea.
Go for a deduction. Let your emotions run riot.
Well, my deduction still has to
Go
be,
on, then.
unfortunately, Mrs. White.
But we've got to
She
go
leapt to the defense of the veal rather too strongly. She left the room clutching a bottle. She's clutching a bottle now.
That's your deduction.
I agree,
Mrs.
yes.
White, with what weapon in which room?
I think she probably poisoned his chocolate mousse.
Mrs. White, with the poisoned chocolate mousse, in what room?
Well, it'd have to be the dining room.
In the dining room. So it's Mrs. White with poison in the dining room. You're wrong on all 3 of those assumptions.
Wonderful woman.
I can tell.
Thank you, Professor.
Back to Andrew and Dee, your deduction, your question first, if you wish.
We believe it was Mrs. Peacock.
Why?
Why, Dee?
Well, she was jealous of her stepdaughter's attentions to all of the men around.
Embarrassed.
Jealous.
With what weapon?
With the antique sword in the library.
Mrs. Peacock.